Welcome, guys, to my big game breakdown. I am looking at Boston College and Richmond, a line of five, BC, the home team. People often ask, how do you handicap college basketball at the beginning of the year? Well, I will say this. With the transfer portal, it is the toughest sport to handicap at the beginning of the year because one superstar player on a weak team can be significantly an upgrade to that team and can get them multiple wins. So we have to go back and see where the teams finished last year, at least during the first couple weeks of the season. BC finished about the number 144th team. If you look at power ratings or the Ken Palm or the Bart Torvik ratings, they're in that range. They have a third year head coach and three returning starters. Richmond finished almost identical, 141 in the numbers I use, and they returned one starter. Remember, they had a tumultuous season last year. Mooney, who's been there for a couple decades, had to step away for a heart procedure in mid-February. So, the team finished poorly, but they've been up and down. The Spiders, last 5 years, 13 wins, 24 wins, 14, 24, 12, 24, 15. So you're looking at this should be the year they improve again. But I just don't see it. While they have a very positive transfer portal and they are 2-0 straight up in ATS to start the season, I think they're still going to need time to meld. I look at their schedule so far this year. They played VMI and Siena. Two weak teams. Yes, they covered both, but they were not tested, and both games were at home. In fact, if you look at the Ken Palm strength of schedule, when they look at VMI and Siena, both teams are in the bottom 20 of the overall rankings, and they're ranked number 343 in collective defenses they faced. So absolutely not tested. And while you say, well, Boston College has only played Fairfield and the Citadel, a big difference. Fairfield is quite a bit better than both of those teams, and the Citadel was a road game. That tests your mental even more, especially when you're starting early in the season. And is there a reason they only beat Citadel by 4 points? Yes, they were a significantly higher favorite. In fact, they were a 9-point favorite and they trailed that game, but they were out of sync almost the entire game. Quentin Post, one of their best players and their starting center, got an early technical, foul trouble, only played 19 minutes, only had 10 points. And without him, they were quite a different team. In fact, the Citadel shot 40% from three-pointer. BC struggled, shooting only 4 of 15 on their end of the ball. I think BC is the more experienced team at home in a situation where they've been tested and had to fight back against a team that we're not sure what's going to happen with their one returning starter. Yes, they have some transfers they're happy with, but let's say how they could do it on the road. Give me BC minus the points in this game for the big game breakdown.
Georgetown won 7 games a season ago, and things are going to be really tough for them tonight in Piscataway. The Hoyas just lost to Holy Cross as big favorites, shooting just 36% from the field, 63% from the charity stripe, while putting up 67 points. So after a terrible offensive showing, now Georgetown's going to have to try to score against one of the best defenses in the country. We know Rutgers, this has been their reputation for years now. They bring it on the defensive side. Rutgers ranks 36th in defensive efficiency at just 93.8 points per 100 possessions. They're 2-1 on the season. After an opening loss to a sneaky good Princeton team, they really try and slow you down. And they've yet to score 70 points in a game despite facing some very poor competition. For as good as the defense is, I'm not sure you want to be laying this kind of a number with the Scarlet Knights here. Rutgers is 296th in effective field goal percentage. And when it comes to three-pointers, you can absolutely forget about it. 38.3% field goal percentage overall. So basically, when they shoot the ball, it's most likely not going in. Georgetown is clearly in for another loss as they try to turn this program around. But the Rutgers defense will keep them in almost every game. They always give them a fighter's chance because they're just so strong at that end of the court. We're looking at a low-scoring affair here as Rutgers brings their offense, struggles to score on the other end, and neither team knocks down their throws. Give me the under in Georgetown, Rutgers tonight.
Battle of undefeated teams in Fairfax, Virginia, my home neck of the woods on Wednesday night at 7:30 Eastern when Cornell 3-0 now takes on 2-0 George Mason. And something we always talk about a lot when handicapping basketball is pace of play. And yes, we only have a week or so of results here, but we can always look at how teams play under their current coaches, how they played last year as well. And last year, Cornell was one of the fastest teams in the country, and I expect it to be the same way. And so far in 2023 season, Cornell is very fast once again. In fact, you look at the adjusted efficiency ratings after their first 3 games, they're the 32nd fastest team in college basketball pace-wise. And George Mason's been playing the exact opposite style. George Mason's in the 320s right now. So I think that's going to benefit the Patriots here in what will be a slow-down half-court game at home, and that will disrupt a Cornell team that likes to play and score in transition. Cornell's also been relying heavily on the three-pointer. You know, Ivy League teams, we think of them as playing slow. That's not the case with Cornell. But we do think about them taking a lot of threes, and that is the case with Cornell. They're taking 27 3-pointers a game. They're hitting 39% of them. That might slow down tonight. George Mason's allowing just 26.5% so far from three-point range and just 31.5% overall on defense this season. So I like the matchup here, and I think we get some line value as well based on recent results and the fast undefeated start for Cornell. Currently, as of Wednesday morning, George Mason's only a 2-point home favorite, which is basically saying Cornell's the better team. I do not agree with that. So we'll take the Patriots. And we don't do a lot of college basketball props, but I knew I had some George Mason merchandise. We'll say it's in the bag in the Patriots Center tonight with George Mason.
Best bet, go into Florida. South Florida Bulls hosting Central Michigan. So while we were talking, I went to the database. What a unique situation. South Florida has played 1 game. They played last Thursday against South Carolina State. They win 96-52. Central Michigan opened at Oklahoma, came home on Saturday to host ULM, goes to play Florida State in Tallahassee on Monday, and now travels down I-4 to play South Florida in this game. So we're looking at, maybe it's I-95, my apologies, or I-75. I don't know. It's one of those highways. But I went to the database and looked. Now, I still like South Florida, but I like to share the data. Teams playing their second college basketball game against teams playing their fourth are only 29.3% against the spread. Now, this is against my best bet on South Florida. But again, we find trends and angles and situations in every game, and I want to make you aware. It was something I was not aware of because it happens so infrequently. Now, granted, the sample size is very small. There's only been 60 games that have fit that bill in the last 10 years. So again, it happens about 6 times a year, but an interesting trend we'll have to keep an eye on. Again, as I mentioned in my other video, it's so difficult in college basketball when you have one returning starter and a new head coach. Can you really lay 17 in this role with that South Florida team? It's a yes for me. I'm an Abdur Rahim fan. He came over from Kennesaw State. He was the head coach there for 3 or 4 years, brought a few of his players over, happy with his recruiting class. He has a freshman point guard who absolutely is a stud. Jaden Reed was the conference freshman of the year in his first game. It is a young guard program. He starts a freshman and a sophomore in Reed and Knox and guards. But this is as much as a fade of Central Michigan as it is a play on USF. Central Michigan was one of the worst teams last year. They were about 353 out of 363 teams. This year, their defensive efficiency through 4 games, 363, folks. That is 343, excuse me. There's only 362 teams this year. But you look at what they allowed. Yes, they played a difficult schedule. They allowed Oklahoma 56% shooting. They allowed Florida State 56% shooting. And while both of those teams are better than South Florida, USF is a very fast tempo team this year. They're going to play quickly. Central Michigan, again, a very poor defense. Both 2-point and 3 points have been very poor for them. Yes, South Florida only played South Carolina State where they were a 20-point favorite. But 11 turnovers in any game is great. Forcing 21 turnovers on defense are great. You look at the Central Michigan offense, They've had 19 and 21 offensive turnovers the last 2 games. That was against ULM at home where they had 19 turnovers. And then they went to Florida State and had 21. This will be a turnover fest. This will be South Florida that has played many guys their first game. They have a deep bench. They're going to play a lot of minutes. They're going to play at an incredible tempo. When you're an up-tempo team and it's early in the season and you bring in your seconds and your third strings, you're still going to allow those guys to play the game plan you want. You're not going to play slow down. You want them to get into practice minutes. Again, rare for a new head coach, one returning starter, for me to lay 17 points in your second game of the season. But this fade of Central Michigan is that strong. I do like the Bulls here tonight.
We're headed to Reno for today's best bet, where the Wolfpack are off to a strong start, going 2-0 both straight up and against the spread to start the season. And that includes going up to Seattle and beating Washington in their last game as underdogs. That was somewhat surprising. But look, there's a lot to like about Nevada. They bring back 3 starters, including long and experienced backcourt with Jared Lucas and Keenan Blackshear. They were very good against the number last year, going 19 and 12 against the spread. And they also have a very high cover rate when listed as heavy favorites. That's obviously the case they find themselves in tonight. It's quite the opposite for Pacific, who actually has the second worst cover percentage in the entire country over the past 2 seasons, if you can believe that. 19, 38, and 2 over the last 2 years. The thing with the Tigers is they want to play fast. They're just not very good at it. 219th in offensive efficiency, way too many turnovers, and they don't get second chance opportunities, as is often the case with these high up-tempo teams. Nevada does a great job of taking care of the basketball and knocking down free throws. Important for the cover here because we can expect them to be at the line a lot. They have a significant rebounding advantage and should dominate the paint. Wolfpack are going to throw a balanced attack at you, and they're better in nearly every category. Nevada has also won the last 5 meetings in this series and has covered 4 straight. They get the win and cover again at home tonight. Give me Nevada for today's best bet.
Let's look at a free play tonight on Wednesday in college basketball. It's a huge card tonight in college and pro basketball, also a giant college and pro football card all week long. And we have a very special offer this Wednesday and Wednesday only. It's $5 Wednesday at WagerTalk.com. I've been there for over 3 years. First time we've ever done a $5 Wednesday. So check out my page right now, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. Take advantage of the $5 best bet for Wednesday. And don't forget all 30-day packages this week. You get an instant $50 discount with promo code ALL30 as well. So check that out, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com. And we're going to go to an ugly game on the added board here for Wednesday night. It's an extra game if you check the Wager Talk live odds screen. Goes at 7 Eastern, and we're going to take a look at Louisville minus the 17. Now, why would we ever back a team that went 4-28 straight up last year and lay 17 points? Well, that's exactly why we're doing it, because Louisville's going to be pretty bad again this season. They're off to a very mediocre 1-1 straight up 0-2 ATS start, but this will probably be the weakest opponent they play all season in Coppin State. So Louisville will not overlook the opportunity to win and win big. And I think that's exactly what they do here tonight. Louisville does not shoot the ball well, and they're off to a bad start. In fact, they've been outscored by 51 points from 3-point range in the first 2 games, yet they lost by 10 and they won by just a single point. That's because they've dominated down low, outscoring their opponents by 38 points down low. And I think that'll be the edge Louisville has tonight against a really bad Coppin State team. And the 3-pointer won't be an issue tonight because Coppin State cannot shoot whatsoever. On the season, after their first 3 games, they're hitting less than 24% from 3. They're shooting just 35% from the field. And that's because they need to score in transition. Last year, they were one of the 20 fastest teams in the country out of 360-plus teams. And they're playing fast again this season. That's how Louisville will like to play as well. So this will be an up-tempo, fast-paced game, which means there'll be more points, which makes it easier to cover the big number. And Louisville will have plenty of motivation to do it with much tougher opponents on deck, including a neutral site game this Sunday against the Texas Longhorns. Louisville doesn't overlook this one, and they win big. Louisville Cardinal in a blowout minus the 17 goes at 7 Eastern tonight on Wednesday. And don't forget, if you want my strongest play right now for $5 Wednesday, it's an instant 80% discount off the normal rate. Then check out my page, Steve Merril, WagerTalk.com.